All right, we might as well. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're the Nubile Thangs from Chicago, Illinois. We're very glad to be here.
Hey, sorry, no, it's not an actual Nubile Thangs show. That got canceled thanks to the coronavirus. So instead, someone came up with the ridiculous idea to do this. A night of stories and reminiscences from the boys themselves, looking back on 30 years of the Nubile Thangs. We have Lindsey Jones on vocals and bass.
Why are you doing this?
Because otherwise I'll fall off my head. That's right, baby!
We have Chris Udy on guitar for the Nubile Thangs.
Woo! Rock and roll.
Okay, go to it.
We have with us tonight John Booty Noise on the drums.
Oh my God. The only thing that rivals this, hanging out with Dave Gardalo. Let me tell you, Davey G, he knows what's up.
We have Jason Singer on the saxophone. And we have Oscar Ibarra on the trumpet.
I know how to play the trombone. Okay, you can stop now.
Win rock!
Was that thunder? Oscar, did you hear that?
No.
No? All right.
We should get on with this.
Yes.
All right. So I have expertly mixed in a series of really dumb questions with a couple of like mediocre questions. I figured that'd be a good place to start.
Dumb and mediocre is our brand. So you are
that's right, yeah.
target.
Excellent. We're nailing it. But having watched you guys play, I don't think any of these questions matter. And I'm going to say something and then you guys will talk. So as far as introductions go, I'm Travis Chandler. I used to play in a band called Bumpus that played with the Nubile Thangs a bunch of times. Currently, I guess I could say I play in Terrible Spaceship, but Terrible Spaceship is like all bands right now, we're on hiatus, I guess.
Yes.
So I think we're all here because you guys are going to play an awesome show and we don't get to do that. And instead we're going to do this so that there's something. So with that in mind, I love your guys' band, so I'm really happy to be able to ask you some questions. I've mixed in some of my own personal questions just that I've always wanted to ask that I never really had the chance to, so I'm excited to get to those. But I have to ask some of the big dumb questions, the big simple ones. Like, and I read the stuff that Jason sent over. Thanks, Jason.
Actually, it was from Lindsay, but yeah.
Thanks, Lindsay. Did a woman's voice just hop in there for a second? Did anybody hear that? Okay.
That's my wife. She wants me to take it off of my headphones so she can hear what's going on.
Oh, okay.
I'll do that.
I'd help her.
I think I deserve that. Don't you guys think I deserve that?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
You deserve more than that.
My wife made me close the door so she doesn't have to hear this.
We
So-
can't
Come
play.
on, you're a little.
Hi.
Hi. Travis.
How you
Look at
doing?
that beat.
I know. I threatened to start curling the edges like a bad guy in an old movie, and
No.
nobody's.
Don't do it.
That's,
Everything seems like a good idea.
Right. Says the man with the red beard, right? Yeah.
I'm going with Redbeard on this one. So I'm obligated to ask any band that I meet how they met, and I know that this is a couple of stages sort of question. It's a bit of a complex one.
Lindsay, Chris, and I met at North Carolina School of the Arts, going through theater major stress, and we all played instruments and wanted to blow off some steam, so we put together a mediocre band. And
That's what you do.
and got better over time.
Yeah.
We were sort of like we were all in the same acting class together, and we had this friend of ours named Richard Fulgham, who had written all of these poetry that he had done for his own enjoyment. And this poetry was funny, but it was also really dirty. And at one point I had said, like, this would be pretty funny if we made songs out of this. And so somehow, like, I know it came up, like, somehow in classes, somehow John was like, I can play the drums. And I was like, I play bass and Chris can play guitar. And so Richard had written this song based on a true life experience about how this girl that he had fallen in love with had given him gonorrhea. And
what was the name of the song, Lindsay?
The name of the song, I believe, was called Gonorrhea.
Yes, very good.
I can confirm that is indeed the name of the song.
I got gonorrhea. Shit! Gonorrhea, burning in my brain. Gonorrhea, driving me insane. Gonorrhea, bouncing off the walls. Gonorrhea, they're creatures in my bones.
Very subtle. Nice.
So at that point, Chris and John were, I think, living together in an apartment on campus. And I came over there and Richard came over there, and we basically sort of worked this song out together. And then we played it for people. They kind of came and attended and heard us play the only song we knew. And then almost immediately people were like, that was great. What are your other songs? Of which we had none. And then it was like, well, when are you guys playing again? And we had no idea. And so from there, Richard kept bringing out more and more poems, and we started writing more and more songs. And before you knew it,
about smutty sex,
deviant forms of sex, basically, was what it was about.
That's the best start of a funk band origination story I've ever heard in my life. Like, it was all hardcore sex stories. Is that in the literature, in the stories that Jason sent me? I saw they're also listed as the Smut Boys. Is that the original title?
Yes,
okay.
Correct. Yeah. We all had our own. We had smutty names, like made up smutty names, like.
Ladies and gentlemen, our guitar, lead guitar,
Otis Schlong. That was my name.
Oh, bass.
Yeah.
Jones were Mr. Phallus.
I was Mr. Phallus, yes.
Good,
right.
good.
I have no idea what the name was.
John, you were just Pig, right?
Pig, you're right.
Yes, that's right.
Pig. Yeah. That was in 1989. That was our sophomore year in college.
Nice.
And that it kind of fell apart. The more Richard wrote songs and got deeper and deeper into his black hole, the more he drank and the crazier he got. And so the Smut Boys was a meteoric rise to local fame with a pretty quick burnout. And then we were just kind of left. One of the guys, a good friend of ours, Mark Johnson, was sort of kind of in the band too.
sphincter, the minister of God.
We had more than a few people that were sort of kind of in the band. This is definitely kind of the Earth, Wind, and Fire phase.
There were like 10 people, yeah.
But it finally just, that whole thing kind of fell apart. The cops got called a bunch of times because you have to remember, this is Winston-Salem, North Carolina in 1989, 1990. And you couldn't buy, liquor or porn except for, at the like state sanctioned stores. So I think we just kind of like it was kind of fun and it was kind of a joke, but we wanted to do something that was a little bit more serious. Later on the next year, we started playing, writing some more songs. They got a little bit more funk based. I don't know. I guess we were listening to a lot of James Brown at the time. Who knows? These were just the Spin Doctors were popular. I don't know.
Also, like Jane's Addiction, like that stuff.
Yeah.
Was,
Yeah.
But it was really weird because I hadn't heard some of the early stuff, and I know how funky you end up. So hearing like this interesting combination of like sort of 80s rock and some punkish influence in there a little bit, and
Of course, yeah.
Sorry, sir, we're out of beer. What do you mean you're out of beer? Sorry, sir, we're out of Coke. What do you mean you're out of Coke? Sorry, sir, we're out of Tahiti. What do you mean you're out of Tahiti? Sorry, sir, we're out of forks. What do you mean you're out of forks?
And then sort of trying to trace that thread to the later stuff was cool. But I think in the early years, you guys fell victim to the exact same stuff we all did, right? It's the 80s sounds were there. Everybody had a chorus pedal on everything. Solid state all the way.
I still have that chorus pedal.
Yeah. But it's cool. You guys did it well. I mean, they're good songs. It's just, it's sort of interesting that it more.
I think we just got to be slightly better at what we did. And I mean, that was the reason why we weren't that funky in the beginning, is because I honestly couldn't play it that well. And so it was just like, this is my best shot at this. But you're right, though. We
better over time. Like that's definitely true. Like you listen to that early stuff, and the musicianship is not that good.
That's because we couldn't play.
Right. Well, that's how it goes.
Look so sad. I wonder how you take it.
That's largely, due to the fact that we added, Oscar and Jason to the band too, which is later on. But
yeah.
Definitely.
But no, it's fun to listen.
No,
to
that's
those
absolutely true. Like it really got much better when Oscar and
I mean, weirdly, somehow.
We were all fucking like, I mean, I guess we probably played in bands in high school, right? I can't remember if you guys did. You did.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. We played in some shitty band in high school, and then we all came and like we just grew up learning to play together, basically.
We all started as shitty musicians. You guys are actually better at it than I would have expected at that stage. Like you kind of knew what you were doing, which was, I mean,
it's actually a compliment.
It is. It's not intended to be backhanded at all. Like when my band started, we were horrible, like unlistenably bad. Nobody knew their instruments. But you guys kind of did, and it was more about identity than it was about. I mean, it also became about being great at your instrument or whatever, which is awesome. But it sounded very much like the arc is not. It doesn't start as like I just picked up a guitar for the first time. You knew how to play, which is cool, and then you sort of morphed into different things.
I mean, one of the things that really helped us was we had been playing together for a while, so we were really already sort of on the same wavelength with one another, and kind of knew. We also sort of knew what one another's strengths were, and so I think we sort of leaned into those as best we could.
I would agree with that. I think that as far as just musicianship, I knew how to play, but I don't think that. I guess it's like playing a sport. It's like if you're sitting around in your driveway shooting hoops. It's not the same. You don't get as good as when you play with other guys who, are at least as good as you, or maybe even better. I mean, I think John's probably clearly one of the, is one of the best drummers, I still think, in the city of Chicago. I've played in a couple of bands with John, been around for a long time. And, me and Lindsay are hacks in a lot of ways compared to John. Mostly Lindsay.
Yeah, that is true. That is absolutely true.
But when you play with people who who understand where you're coming from and who are, like I said, at least as good, if not better than you, you can't help but get better. That's a huge advantage that we had, I think, early on with Smut Boys, and then moving on to Chicago, Buddy Holly. I mean. This is, I think that's really strangely where, we really picked up all the chops as far as just like the bass part of the three-piece, playing together every day for a year, hours at a time, traveling and that sort of stuff. It really solidified us. I have a hard time sometimes playing with other musicians, really. I mean, I just because of the amount of time that we spent together, playing together. It's definitely it's been a learning curve in the past 10 years, playing with other guys.
Well, I think part of it has to do too with just Oscar excluded in this, but those of us who have done musical theater anyway, we have to hear harmonies. We have to, we have to dance and sing at the same damn time. We have to play and sing at the same damn time. So you sort of learn how to be in a room with everybody else. And I think that had a lot to do with the fact that, not just did we all learn how to play with each other and figure out the style of what the songs we thought should sound like together when we created them, but it's also a big part of the reason we all never were not friends. We always really enjoyed hanging out with each other. And I think that had just as much to do with it as anything.
I always found it fascinating with our side of it, that the more popular we got, the more we hated each other's guts. It went like that. Well,
we never got really popular, so maybe that's why we're all still friends.
Thank God, yeah. Every band that I know of that I really, really like a lot, every artist that I know had some experience where they're just locked in for a long time doing that. And it seems like to me, in the early days for you guys, that was the Buddy Holly stuff. And in the later days, it was playing relentlessly. It was the touring relentlessly, the nonstop shows. That's how anybody got good. And it's how you form those relationships. And you guys always, I remember my first time seeing you guys, you presented instantly as people who had known each other their entire lives. And this was all old news. And we were all just trying to catch up with the jokes.
Honestly, it was just a crazy set of coincidences that all came into play as to how all the rest of it came together. I mean, what happened was, how we got to Buddy Holly was we were in our senior year at School of the Arts, and we had been cast, the three of us had been cast in this musical called Baby. We had scored this really big gig for us, the Nubile Thangs, which was that we were going to be opening for this band called Johnny Quest, who at that moment in time was like a really big North Carolina funk band. And they were going to be playing at a local club, and we had gotten this opening gig, and it turns out that gig took place on the same night as our first night of rehearsal for this musical. And we were going to be working with this director who was coming in. She was an outside director, not on the staff of the school, and her name was Victoria Bussert, and she came in to direct us. And of course the band voted me as the person who would go to her and say, "Hey, it's great to meet you. We have to leave rehearsal early so that we can go play this show."
Nice.
I had already been kicked out of school and brought back in for my senior year, which is a whole other story. But I was there. I couldn't have been on more thin ice. So I was the perfect candidate to like get us all in trouble. So I said to the director, hey, it's great to meet you. We're all really excited to work with you. It just so happens that we're also a band and we're playing the show tonight. Is there any way we could get out of this first rehearsal a little early so we could do this show? And she took a look at me and she was like, well, who's in the band? And I said, well, that skinny guy over there is the guitar player and that guy over there is the drummer. And she was like, all right, I'll make you a deal. I will let you out of rehearsal early, but you have to promise that you're going to come to Chicago and audition for the national tour of Buddy, the Buddy Holly story that I'm directing. And I was like, all right.
Okay. Great.
Yeah.
It's not exactly a tough deal to make.
We'll do that. So a few months later, the three of us, we went to Chicago and we went and auditioned for the show. And so we had gone in and done our auditions and they wanted us to come back later that day and do some more things. And so while we were waiting in the sort of snack room cafeteria of this college where we were auditioning, that's where we met Jason Singer.
Gotcha.
And then Jason should tell his part of this story because then it gets even better from here.
So very quickly, Lindsay and I are sitting there and we start talking about music and I'm like, oh, you guys are in a band. I'm a saxophone player myself. And I had my horn because I had to play for the audition if I wanted it. And I wasn't sure I wanted it. And Lindsay said, what kind of music you're into? And I said, well, like my favorite band is probably XTC. And he was like, oh my God. And we became friends and they said, we have this band and outside of this and you should sit in with us sometime. And, you know, we became instant friends. And then you guys played a gig, right?
So yeah, we played a gig not long after that. But the thing is that Jason had actually sort of showed up to be like, I don't really think I want this role. And by the time he hung out with us for a day, he was like, oh, all right, I'll do the Chicago part of it and stick with it long enough. And so we were like, oh great, Jason can come play with us at the show.
Yeah, we're the Nubile Thangs.
We had written a couple of songs with a saxophone player in North Carolina named John Ellis, and he didn't come along with us. He was an actual legitimate jazz musician.
He was like a real musician. And I think he was in high school too, I think.
He was. One thing came to another. We got the part of Buddy Holly story, and suddenly I had been trying to stay with this girl who it turned out was crazy, and I was living for her for about 4 or 5 days when I realized I had to get out of there as soon as possible.
Happens to the best of us.
And
it happened to Lindsay over and over again, actually.
It did, actually, yeah. But so at one point I was talking to Jason. Jason's like, well, why don't you just sleep on my floor? And I was like, oh, that's a good idea. Yeah, I could do that. And so then
that was maybe the worst decision of my life, just for the record.
And so then before we knew it, I was sleeping on Jason's floor and we were playing the Buddy Holly story and playing shows when we could get them in Chicago and starting off the band. And another person who was in the band who was playing Richie Valens was Ramon Ibarra, who is related to our man Oscar Ibarra, which is how we met him.
I met them because my brother wore like a dead cat on his head.
Yeah.
It's
more like a ferret.
I just moved to Chicago, actually. I'd come up from Miami and I moved up to Chicago. And basically, this was in my first week here. And my brother was like, oh, play with these guys. They got a show, blah, blah. You got to come out. And I was like, all right.
And in the 3 years since the Nubile Thangs have first appeared on our show, they have produced a new CD called Pork Chop Extraordinaire. Here they are, the Nubile Thangs.
Thanks, Mike.
1, 2, 3, 4.
I wanted to ask you guys, like, especially in that era, in the like late 90s or mid 90s, Chicago clubs, that's, you know, where we were playing, that was our stomping ground for local shows. What were your favorites? What were your best memories of those clubs? Like, do you have any places? So many of them have disappeared recently. I know Elbow Room is shutting its doors.
Let me show you how.
it might be worth like, you know, tipping our proverbial glass towards some of those old clubs and how great they were.
Apart from Chris, like, you know, getting impaled by another car, I would say.
Oh, that was awesome. Yeah.
Thurston's, we always have really fun shows at Thurston's.
Thurston's was great.
Avalon, as weird and as stupid and as horrible it was to load in and out of that place. I remember the first time that we were like here, it was winter, I want to say winter of 1994, which we played that night with a band called was it Fat Nut, I believe.
Fat Nut.
Yeah.
I remember Fat Nut.
Like, it was the first time I think we'd really played much. We played like a couple of small shows at the Avalon. They had 2 rooms on either side of the venue, and it was like, it was like 60 fucking degrees below zero.
It was a bit warmer in parts of the east today. In Chicago, for example, it was above freezing for the first time in 43 days. We're
from North Carolina. And I just I just remember thinking, why does anyone live here? What is wrong with me? And like they wouldn't turn the heat on in the Avalon until they opened the doors. Right. So like we were doing sound check, and I just remember like seeing my breath come out of my mouth and trying to keep my hands warm on the, you know, like on the lights. Oh, I remember playing there with fucking Dred Zeppelin.
Dred Zeppelin.
Ah, yeah.
I was told what it means to be a man,
baby. You know, fuck those guys, by the way.
I always liked them.
I like Dred Zeppelin, you know, don't get me wrong, but like they were kind of diva-ish. Like we were supposed to open for them, and they wouldn't let us like open on the same stage. We had to play in the little tiny bar across the way, but it was packed. I remember that was a great show. We fucking rocked. They had big, long windows in the place, and they were just steamed. I mean, completely steamed up. You couldn't see outside.
It was great.
Yeah, that was cool. That was cool.
The Avalon also is one of my favorite memories because it's the time I remember vomiting between songs once. What happened is, if you remember the Avalon, they had this hot dog restaurant, Muskie's, that was just below.
Oh, right, Muskie's.
Muskie's. Right underneath it.
Right underneath it. And I remember I ate like 2 chili cheeseburgers, and then we did the show. And we were like halfway through, and I was like, we finished the song, and I was like, okay, it's time to start the next song. And I was like, I think I'm going to throw up now. And I literally just went, whoa! And just exploded all over the side of the stage. And then and everyone, like, it was like an E.F. Hutton commercial, like it was silent. And everyone just looked at me, and I was 3 seconds of total silence, and then I was like, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then and I remember I had so many people come up to me after that and say, like, that is the single most rock and roll thing I have.
That's the most punk rock thing I've ever seen.
My entire life.
Very John King, Gang of Four. Absolutely.
Thank you. There was a club. Okay, there was this club called Hunk Papa. It was like this little tiny place.
Fuck, I forgot about that place.
We played that place like once a month. It was called Hunk Papa, and it was. This was like in '93. We played there once, and they were like, "You guys can play here whenever you want." And I was like, "Can we play here next month?" And they were like, "Sure." And we literally would go back there every month and play there, and it was the best. And then one day we showed up and they were just closed. And I realized if you base your entire business plan around us, you're going to go out of business.
Right. Actually, I think it was Brother Jimmy's where we had to put you on a stool, Chris, because of your broken ankle.
The first show we played back after I had my leg crushed was at Martyrs.
Martyrs.
And you guys,
I was there.
And you guys brought a lazy boy, and an end table where I would set my drink.
Yeah.
And I do remember having like the lazy boy propped up playing guitar on the lazy boy. Yeah.
That's
good
living in
time.
style right there. That's
good time.
My other favorite Chicago gig that I will remember for the rest of my life is we played this place called Alive One,
which is big now.
Yeah.
On Halsted. When they first started, they were small and they only had a stage that was very temporary. And what they would do is they would just put milk crates on the floor, plastic milk crates, and then put 2x4s on top of it, and we would just get on top of that and play. And like clearly, they were used to having like folk duos that play this place, and so we get up there and we start doing our show, which is us jumping up and down all the time, like that's what we do. And so plastic milk crates, it turns out, can actually bend under pressure. And so if you have a whole stage built out of plastic milk crates, it became pretty clear pretty quickly that we were like the whole stage was moving back and forth. And I remember looking at John 2 songs in, John was just trying to hang on to his cymbal. And he was like, stop jumping.
Cymbals are like,
everything's moving around.
It was my favorite.
That pretty much cool things between us and Alive One, if I remember.
Yeah, that was that.
They stopped live music after that. We literally ended live music at that place.
Yeah, we did.
Years later, they opened up a back room, but I do believe the front room was no longer open.
That's right. Because the front room still looks the same. It just doesn't have it just has tables there now.
Yeah.
The note was always fun.
Thank you so much. So great to see you all here. All right. Against better advice, we're going to continue to play.
I always thought of the note as our home base.
I love that.
Yeah, I agree.
That's that's the poster from the last gig right over my shoulder.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yep.
Every time I pass it now and it says flat iron, I like, no, you're not the flat iron, no.
Agreed. Plus, we had a really good time. Every time we played Metro was really phenomenal. I mean,
Metro, yeah.
Everybody loves playing the Metro. They just always treated us like shit.
Yeah.
It was great to be. I was so honored to be on that stage. Like I walked in with giant eyes, and everybody was an asshole to me the whole time. By the end of it, I was, eyes were back to normal.
Yeah. Well, House of Blues, they always treated you well.
That's right. Yeah. I was going to say, strangely enough, the House of Blues is still, I played there with several bands now, and they never fail to treat you like a fucking rock star every time.
Yep.
And you get paid, and people are great, and I still, in a strange way, that corporate place is really in a lot of ways the best place to play in Chicago.
Yeah,
absolutely. They know what they're doing at those higher end ones. The better stories come from the places that are propping up their stage with a record box.
I mean, we definitely did our share of like the Czar Bar and like Phyllis's Musical
Inn, yeah.
Places that were the size of a cinder block and had the acoustic properties of one.
Yeah. What was the place that Bumpus used to play that was up near like the folk school of music?
Andersonville?
Yeah.
That was when Bop Shop shut down because we were also not good for music or for business. And then they tried to reopen in Andersonville, and we shut that one down too.
Bop Shop, right.
We were like their flagship band for their failing efforts to stay alive. Okay, I've got a couple of things that I specifically need to get into, though.
Okay.
Jenny Jones show.
On the next Jenny Jones, these men should have read the warning label.
My heart's beating faster than when I fight a fire.
Because in uniform, they're flammable.
This man is beautiful. He's not Mr. Right. He's not Mr. Right now. He's Mr. Right on.
On the next Jenny Jones.
Let us discuss. I believe you've written a song about the whole experience. How to quite describe it? It was a reality show.
Well, it was a talk show, in theory.
A talk show.
This sort of sullied underbelly of talk shows that were really pretty lurid so that you could bring in the lowest common denominator, i.e. us.
Actually, the first one was Morton Downey Jr., wasn't
Morton
it?
Downey Jr.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yep. So did you get the phone call? How did it happen?
They called out of the blue. They had gotten our number. I think they had gotten our number, ironically, from the people who ran the music at Navy Pier, who we had previously just really irritated. And I was, and so when they called, I was like, they really want us? And so they were like, yeah, we really want you to do this. And so we got the call, and they said, just so you know, the show is about people who are in love or have a secret crush on fast food workers. And what we're going to do is we're going to bring the people on the show, and we're going to bring the fast food workers on the show, and they're going to confess their love. And then in the middle of that, we'll bring you guys on. And I thought, oh, okay, yeah, that seems like a reasonable proposal. So, and I went back to everybody and I said, is everybody okay doing the Jenny Jones show? And they were like, sure, yeah. You know, it was kind of like being in ancient Rome when they feed people to the lions. Like, it was really like that.
Yeah.
You felt bad for these poor people who were just being used for entertainment, where you could sort of point and laugh at these people, you know, because they were sort of pathetic. And so anyway, we showed up and we played and we had a fun time. But afterwards, the song that really, like the entire experience, we felt sort of gross about. And so that's when I sort of thought out this song, which we called My Brief Career in Pornography, which was really about like, if we're gonna get dirty, we might as well just get as dirty as we can.
I always thought that song was written after the stripper one.
No.
There were two. There were two twice, yes.
Yeah, the other one was about strippers who were so hot nobody would ask them out.
They're beautiful, stunning. So why can't these amazing babes just get a date?
You gotta cover that, because you scare me so much, I'll run away.
Run, Forrest, run! Run, Forrest, run!
Right. Which was another sort of horrible experience, because what you realized is these people just had really bad self-images in general, and they had done things to their bodies in order to make themselves seem attractive, and then were defending it in front of an entire audience of people who were just saying, you're unattractive. That's why no one's asking you out, is because you're unattractive.
Yeah.
It was awful.
That was pretty bad.
Anyway, my favorite moment from the first one, though, the part that was the most uncomfortable was the McDonald's guy.
Yeah.
So the whole idea of this episode is that the first person comes out and said, I've always had a crush on this person. And then they bring the guy or the girl out who's in a uniform, blindfolded. So they hear them talk a little bit and they're like, do you know who this is? And they're like, maybe, I don't know. Let's take off the blindfold. And most of the time they were like, oh, hey, she's hot and he's hot and let's go out. So this poor young girl is talking about how much she's in love with this guy who works at McDonald's, and he knows her because he knows what she orders and has a crush on her too, and he's not going to be surprised at all. And he comes out and he's wearing the mask, and she says, Jenny Jones says, well, why don't you order and see if he recognizes you?
So would you like to hear her voice before you see who it is?
Yeah.
Okay, just take a listen here.
A 6-piece nugget meal, a large fry, and a Sprite.
And he's like, yeah, I hear that like 150,000 times a day.
Before you take off your blindfold, who do you think it is? Or you want to take them off? You can take them off if you want.
And it was just awful. And I was like, well, we'll be right back. And we go into once.
And
you know?
like,
Here comes the man.
Play us off. You know?
Oh, it was so brutal.
Simple, dumb questions. I'm always fascinated with the titles of songs and albums. We don't have time to go through all of your song titles, but for album titles, we could probably do that.
So start at the beginning, because Oscar and I only took part in 2 of them. So
all right, Fever in the Funk House.
Out of the black, into the blue. Tell me what to do.
So, okay, so we used to work, I used to work, and Chris, I think, worked there a little bit.
I worked there a little bit, yeah.
Yeah, at this grocery store called Mickey's, and they had all these illegal card games as part of what they would do. They would play these different card games. And so they had this really complicated game that I never really understood. But if you got a 5 card and you slammed it really hard on the ground when you were playing it and yelled out "Fever in the Funk House," you would win. Basically, that was the big thing. So Fever in the Funk House was slamming a 5 card down on the ground. That was that.
And it's kind of like the end of the game, like Chi Chung.
It's almost like how do you not name an album
not to be
that?
confused with Chi Chong, which made it into a song.
That's another card game.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Right.
All right, Kill Booty. Please.
I planned your death many times before. That was always just in fun. I imagine that you'd look good dead. Wouldn't everyone? Good times and bad.
We'll let John give that one.
Where did Kill Booty come from, though? I mean, obviously the.
Because you're fucking
Way
booty.
to set him up there, Chris. Where did Kill Booty? Let's let John tell that one. I don't know where'd that come from.
It's only named after me.
Why kill me? Why kill me?
Why kill John?
Lindsay, do you remember?
Nickname
My understanding of how this works, and Chris, you can correct me if I'm wrong, was we had this artwork that we had found of this old man that was like in a bunch of election gear, and he had a sign, a voting sign, and it said like "Vote for McGovern" or whatever it was, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and we were like, I'll just think of something. And so, and Chris was like, "Don't worry, I'm going to take care of it." And Chris just wrote "Kill Booty" and just put it on there, and I was like, okay, I guess that's fine. I'll just go.
Well, yeah,
go with that.
It was like a sign, like down with Nixon or up with McGovern or whatever it was.
That's right.
And so I thought, well, I mean, if you're going to say something, why not say "Kill Booty"?
Well, we need to stand behind something.
Yeah, right. Yeah. If you're gonna, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything.
So a quick segue, but I swear we're going to get back to these. How do you end up with a nickname like Booty, and why do none of the rest of you have an anatomically based nicknames?
Well, I do, but it's a different thing.
All right, that's enough of that.
No, I'm Fat Boy.
Well, yeah, sorry. Okay.
Yeah.
I was curious about the other one.
And I believe it's anatomical. I don't think it was for any other reason.
And you found an ice cream in Las Vegas at a gas station called the Fat Boy.
That picture will be put in right here in this video.
Oh, we're gonna,
John.
They're everywhere.
Well, John, do you remember the story? Do you remember the story of how you got your nickname?
I do. We used to go to, we used to hang out with our friend Mark Johnson, who was quite a good dancer. We used to go to every once in a while, and apparently when I dance, I protrude my rear end a little bit.
I can do an imitation of it.
I can do an imitation too.
Why don't you both do it? Go for it.
Right. Please.
All right, well,
gentlemen.
Okay, go, Lindsay. Let me see it.
All right, so John kind of does this.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of like that. Yeah, that's good.
So
yeah, that's good.
That's better. That's better.
Right.
Yeah.
That's good.
No, like 10 more minutes of that, please, Lindsay.
That's how it came up.
I like it.
That's it.
Well, yeah. So, Mark Johnson just started, like one night, just shouting, "Go Booty, go Booty, go Booty," and it just kind of stuck.
Say booty, 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 booty. Whipped cream, put it all over your body.
That makes sense. If you want a cooler nickname, you have to dance cooler. Is what I've learned from this.
Yeah.
That works. That works for me. Excellent. Okay. Then I've got Buddy Holly's story, but that's not our story here. Tough Luck Fat Boy, I believe, is our next proper title here.
Okay. So here's how that happened. So my mother, who is a character unto herself, used to have this saying that she would say, like, if you kind of caught my mother saying something, you're like, I caught you messed this up. She would turn to me and she would say, for a fat boy, you don't sweat much. And like that was the thing she said.
I didn't know that.
Yes, she still says it all the
Yeah,
time.
I'm sure she does. Yeah.
Yeah. And that was her thing. She would say, for a fat boy, you don't sweat much. So I can't remember exactly the situation, but we were somewhere where it was like, oh, that's not going to work. And I was like, well, tough luck, fat boy. And that's where it went. That's how it came from.
Wow.
Yeah.
There you go. That'll do it.
Didn't know that.
Yeah,
Excellent.
True story.
All right. I'm almost afraid to ask. Unit.
Oh, that's easy.
Oh, that one. Yeah, that one's. This isn't a great story, but basically, we were at a time where we were trying desperately to get signed by a record label, and we kept trying to come up with ways to impress people. And no matter what we did, they were not impressed. And so we figured if we named something Unit, and we could say, like, look, we sold 500 units, that we would somehow be impressed with that. People would be impressed with that.
That's very good. That game with them, it's like, I love that game. It was like, if you sell 100,000 units, then we'll sign you. And my immediate thought was, if I sell 100,000 units, fuck you.
I don't fucking need you, right? Yeah.
I'll never talk to you again. You know?
There was this pivotal point in Nubile Thangs' career where we played the show and this woman from Sony came to watch us, and then I had this conversation with her on the phone afterwards.
It was you and me, and
That's true.
what I remember having this conversation. It was like a conference call.
That is trash, that is dirt, that is filth. What possessed you to write such a disgusting, degeneratized song as that? And I'm complimenting you by considering it a song.
That's right. And we were we had played, she had seen us at the Fireside Bowl of all places. We were talking to her, and she said, like, well, name the band that you guys think you would open up for if you went on tour. And I said, we would open for Fishbone if we went on a tour. And she said, well, look, I can't sell Fishbone's records. So, like, how am I going to sell you guys if I can't sell Fishbone? And that was the moment where I was like, oh, shit, we're never getting signed by a major label ever. Like, it was like, suddenly it was like really clear. Like, we're going to have to do this on our own from now on.
I remember having a completely different conversation. Maybe this was with a different A&R person who said, you guys are great. I love what you're doing. But I don't know that this kind of funk rock thing is really going to sell. You got anything that sounds like Oasis?
Oh, yeah, right.
Yeah,
right. And I was like,
that.
no, we don't have anything that sounds like it. Did you listen to the band? Yeah, I do. I remember that too. Yeah.
On purpose, I don't have anything that sounds like Oasis.
That was after the Arlene Grocery show.
Yeah, that was later. That was like 97, 98. Yeah, that was
something like that.
To go back to Lindsay's, we did end up opening up for Fishbone at the Cubby Bear.
Yeah, we did. Yeah.
Kick ass. That's great.
Yeah.
Guess who Bumpus opened up for at the Cubby Bear?
Who?
Tone Loc.
Ooh. No.
Oh, yeah. Don't just sit there.
Now that guy played
was that
two.
Move?
Yeah. No.
That was Young MC. Sorry.
Funky Cold Medina
and Wild Thing.
Medina, yeah.
And Wild Thing.
Yeah.
And I got it going on.
Right.
He didn't play that one. He played Funky Cold Medina and Wild Thing back to back, and with long wave your hands in the air for an hour and a half.
Clap your hands like this. Oh yeah. Clap your hands like this. Fair bang. Clap your hands like this. Clap your hands like this. Fair bang.
Wow, nice.
I've never seen anything like it.
Nice.
That was kind of the things, like little, interlude thing was the Wild Thing drum beat.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I love that beat.
Yeah, it's a good beat.
Wild Thing.
Didn't you used to do the song? What was the that drum beats band. Shit. Never mind. I'll never remember anything because I'm fucking
old man.
All right. Unit. We just got through Unit, which is. My mind went into the gutter, and you guys, that's very well.
Yeah.
well
the only time ever we will lift you out of the gutter.
Nicely done.
Sorry.
And then Pork Chop Extraordinaire.
It's time to ride when you're gonna fly.
Which is, to be fair, when I first found out about your delightful oeuvre here. But it was the first one. I was like, what the fuck? I never asked, what the fuck is a Pork Chop Extraordinaire? I assume there's a story here.
We were on tour in Kansas City and
St. Louis.
It was St. Louis. That's right. It was St. Louis. Yeah. And everyone was watching this.
It was in, we were in Minnesota. We were staying with our friend, my friend Shona.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It was
we were in a hotel.
We were in a hotel. I think
we were in a hotel.
We were in a
mixed messages, guys.
No, we were
in a hotel. We were watching
in St. Louis.
cable TV in a hotel.
We were watching a show called Grillin' and Chillin'.
Yeah.
It was
Like
it was
that-
two
that-
it was like two guys. One
Two
grilling
guys,
with
yeah.
gas, one grilling with charcoal, wasn't it?
Yep, that's right. Yeah.
A New Yorker guy and like some sorry, I mean to say some fucking hick.
Yeah, no, that's okay. There was like, there was like this weirdo New Yorker guy who was like, he's only cooking with gas, and then the other guy's like, I want to cook with coal, And
Oh,
it's like
charcoal.
Charcoal.
Bobby Flay. I think.
Yeah.
Oh, Bobby Flay.
That was his
you're
first
right.
show.
No, that's right. Yeah, it was. Yeah, and then he said, "Oh, look what you got. What you got right now? What you got right there is a Pork Chop Extraordinaire." And that was like, yeah.
That's gold. That's gold.
That was gold.
Now, I hope I cooked this enough. What do you think, Bobby?
You got a sharp knife?
I got a sharp knife. I've been doing. Look at that big boy. Ooh,
That looks fabulous.
that looks great, doesn't it, Bobby? And the second one is better than the first. Look at the moisture's still just jumping out there. That's one reason I basted it the whole time. Look at that. Pork Chops Extraordinaire.
How many syllables is in that
That's
word?
22 syllables, Bobby. Look at this.
Well, and then I think the last album, the untitled last album that we never made, was going to be called, if I have this correct, Hey Rock Band.
Tell by the look in your eye that your doubt is as wide as the ocean. And now I know that you never say why. Now while I'm saying,
I don't know if you guys remember this. Do you remember this?
Very barely.
I remember talking about this. We used to practice at this old warehouse loft. For like a summer, we practiced there.
In a printing press, yeah.
And it was the same place that Bumpus practiced.
Yeah, that's
like
right.
Oh, yeah.
There was no air conditioning, and it was hot as balls. And we could only practice like at 11 o'clock at night. And it was like it's like Fulton and like Western or something, right?
Yeah.
And that neighborhood's not fantastic now. It was fucking shit then, right?
Yeah.
And so we were upstairs. The windows were up and open. There was no breeze. It was so hot, and like we're playing loud music. It's like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, and then all of a sudden, yeah, we hit the last note, and then all of a sudden you hear like from down on the street, hey, rock band, can you guys close the window? We're trying to sleep. I was like, hey, rock band. And I just remember me and Lindsay going, oh,
That's that.
All right, the following stage pattern is copyright 1999, the Nubile Thangs. I'd like to know how many rednecks are here in this place tonight.
Raise your hand.
My next query here, actually, we've got a couple of contenders already, but I had to ask, worst show.
This is the undisputed worst Nubile Thanks show ever.
Santa Barbara?
Santa Barbara.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you're right.
Oh, man, no, that was great.
It was fun.
All right.
That was fun.
Here's what happened. We get there to the show. Now, when you're touring, you've got to fill up the whole week, right? Because you can't afford a night off. So we had gotten a Tuesday night show in Santa Barbara, California. It was our first time touring the West Coast. We were a long way from home. And I'd gotten us this place, which seemed like it was going to be fine. And we got there, and it was a fairly large club, like way bigger than we expected.
It was a University of California, Santa Barbara hangout. That's why.
Yeah, it was a big place.
Yeah.
So we get there, and we probably get there at like 4:00, and sound check is supposed to be at 5. So we all sort of settle in and hang out. And they say, don't worry, the sound guy will be here soon. So 5:00 comes and goes. We've been just sitting and watching television and slowly drinking, and nothing happens. By about 5:30, I say to the bartender, like, hey, what's the deal with the sound guy? And he's like, he'll work it out. Don't worry. He's always a little late. And then about 20 minutes later, there was a phone call, and the guy picks up the phone and says, hello? What? You're kidding. Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. All right. And he slams down the phone. And I said, is everything okay? And he went, well, the sound guy's dead. And I went,
I mean, it's really sad. We shouldn't be laughing. It was very
and I was like, what?
Of all the things.
I mean.
And literally I said, what? And the guy said, he had it coming. And I was like, and he's like, well, you guys just run your own sound check. So I said, I go to all the rest of the guys in the band. I'm like, hey, we're running our own sound check. And everyone's like, we are? And I said, come on, let's get our stuff on stage. We get all our stuff on stage. I put the microphones in the right place, I think. We sort of get everything figured out. And then I literally have to go through the soundboard one fader at a time, being like, woo, woo, figuring out where all the feedback is. It took us literally, and I'm not kidding you, almost 3 hours to sound check our band because I had no idea what was going on. So we get done with that. It's like 8:00. We're supposed to start at 9. And so the guy's like, okay, great. You can hang out. So the other guys in the band, they have another couple of drinks. We've had a few more drinks by this point. So now and we get to 9:00 and there's literally no one in the club. No one. It is empty. And the guy says, hey, it's 9:00. And I said, well, should we wait a little bit more, maybe, for the crowd to come up? And the guy had this long pause. He goes, I think you guys should probably just start playing. And I was like, okay. So we get up there, we start playing. We play through 2-3 songs, and there was no one there. Now, this is not unheard of for us to play in front of small crowds. So we had gotten really good at like cheering for ourselves.
No, thank you. No, you were great. You were really good on that.
So we're about 4 or 5 songs in now, and I see one lone guy standing all the way at the back of this club. And so Chris and I are both like, hey, come on down. Come on down and play. So he comes about halfway through the club and then stops, and we play another song. And then at the end of that song, we're like, come on down. And he comes a little bit further, and we play another song. We finish the song, and now the guy's standing directly in front of us. And I was like, hey, what'd you think? And he says, do you guys have $1 I can hold? And I was like, do I look like I have $1 I can hold, man? You see how much money we're bringing in here? So he's like, well, fine, fuck you. And he leaves. So we're back to know people again. And we did, in fact, play the rest of the entire show without anyone showing up at all, except for the club owner and us. And as the night went on and things got progressively worse, what usually would take place is people would start drinking more, right? So we finished.
People meaning us.
People meaning us in the band.
Yeah, me. Yeah, mostly me and Oscar.
Oscar.
Okay. I wasn't going to say it, but.
No, that's okay.
All right. So anyway, now we're done with the show. No one has played. We've successfully played an entire concert to an audience of no. We're now sitting around for about 30, 45 minutes, hanging out at the bar. People are drinking heavily by this point in our band. And I go to the club owner and I say, hey, so I just thought we'd settle up, see about the money. And the guy's like, well, I'm sure you know what the door count was. And I'm like, yeah, sorry about that. He's like, well, look, the good news is I usually pay the sound guy $50. And since you guys did your own sound, I'll give you his $50. And I was like, oh, thanks. That's awesome. Now, your band drank about $95 worth of alcohol. So if you want to just pay me $45, we'll just call it even. and then you guys don't ever have to come back here again. And I was like, all right, I guess so. So I gave him money. And then I'm like, come out to the band, and I'm like, hey, I guess we should pack it up and go. And everybody's like, why? It's so great in here. And I was like, let's just go. So, so everybody is, you know, you've probably experienced this if you have super drunken members of your band and you're just trying to get all the equipment together and shuffle out the door. But it's a completely discombobulated process. So by the end of it, we get all the stuff out. It takes us a long time. We finally get everything. We pack everything up, and now we're driving out of town. And now we're all sitting in the van, and I'm like, fuck, that was terrible. We lost $45 on that show. That was awful. And Chris Uda goes, I had a great time. And I'm like, what? He's like, I mean, we did make a little bit of money in the end. And I'm like, what do you mean? How do we make any money? He's like, well, I bet we'll make some money when we sell these off. And he pulls out like 5 SM58.
No! That's great.
Got these microphones. And I'm like, where did you get those? And he's like, well, they're the clubs. And I said, they're going to kill us if they figure out they're never going to let us back in here again. And he said, think about this, man. Do you ever want to come back to this club again? And I was like, all right, let's keep driving.
And plus, the sound man was dead.
Dead.
You know? I mean,
right.
Yeah, that wasn't like he was going to notice.
He's not taking inventory.
Yeah.
He probably took him with him
to the grave. That's
he
right.
had it coming.
Casper, Wyoming.
Casper, Wyoming.
Played the first set where the guys, you go, hey, what beer do you have? They go, yeah, Bud. He goes, what else do you have? Bud Light. That was it. And they go, don't y'all play Buddy Holly songs? So for the second set, Jason and I just sat the fuck down and drank Budweiser.
Well, you guys played Buddy Holly songs, yeah.
Yep. I remember driving in Wyoming, and the doors to the van like came open while we were driving.
And the car drove by going, hey,
you
got your doors open.
The doors are open.
We need a chronology of vans here.
Not the Van Nagen, but the Unsteadoled was first, right?
That's
the Dodge Sportsman.
No, the Van Nagen was first.
The Van Nagen was before the Sportsman.
That's when the spun around the highway, went on 2 wheels.
Yeah, that's when Oscar Andretti over here.
I wasn't driving.
I was driving.
No, it was John. That's right.
It was John.
John Boutros, Mario Andretti, Boutros.
With the 20/20 eyesight.
That was
the guy who's legally blind was driving a car for some reason. And we went over. We were driving to Madison or Milwaukee. I don't remember.
Madison.
It was
no,
one or the other.
It was
and it was cold, and the road was frozen, and it just we hit a patch of black ice, and the van spun. It spun at least 360 minutes, 540 degrees. I mean, it was like a complete rotation in another half, and like went up on two wheels, like, and then like came down facing the opposite direction on the interstate. Like, you know, and unbelievably there was no traffic. I don't know how we survived.
The moment we stopped, before it started going off the side of the road.
Yeah.
You remember 18-wheeler just went.
Oh, there's 2 18-wheelers just kind of came whizzing by.
Yeah.
There were way too many of those.
This is my memory though, because I was driving and Lindsay was sleeping. Lindsay was sleeping, but Lindsay's reaction was the best. So I hit the hatch, and I grew up in Colorado, so I know how to steer into it, the skid, whatever. So anyway, so as soon as we started skidding, Lindsay obviously wakes up and he goes, "Ooh!" Until we stopped. And then the same eyes went by, and we all started laughing because it was fucking
terrifying.
And then we went and played a dumbass gig for 13 people or something stupid.
At OK's Corral.
Where they made the cheddar cheese soup with sausage.
Yeah.
Beer cheese soup.
Beer cheese.
There was that. There was the Dodge Sportsman that didn't have any air conditioning, and we found out why they call it Death Valley. That was bad.
And then there was the dog seat. What was that van?
That was my Astro van that we drove to New York with a trailer on the back with all the shit.
Yeah.
And we got a parking ticket, and that's why I had a bench warrant for my arrest in the state of New York.
Is that really why you had a bench?
So this van, the interior was great, but the outside was rusted to fucking God.
Yeah.
So I used to cover that shit with bumper stickers, man. So the back door was all covered with bumper stickers, and I think some of the fumes were coming into the back because we'd all fall asleep.
And if anyone who had to sit in the dog seat in the back would like just by the end of the trip, we were like. Carbon monoxide poisoning.
So after the Aerostar, we also went to Toronto in my Suburban.
Yes, that's right.
Oh, right. I forgot about that one too. Holy shit.
That thing was
huge.
Huge. We had all our shit in the back.
Yeah.
3 rows of seats.
Yeah.
2 gas tanks.
Going into Canada, didn't they make us go through the whole thing?
Yeah.
No, I don't remember them making us go through the whole thing. I think John had weed, so he was really paranoid.
Oh, maybe.
I think he was just talking about it.
Yeah, could be. That was
that's when Lindsay forgot we were the United States of America. What did you say?
I can't remember what I said. I said something really suspicious. I was so nervous.
The United States of America, sir.
Oh my God.
That was North by Northeast, right?
At the old El Macombo.
Yep. Oh, right.
Yeah. The chronology of vans really were John bought vans for a while, and we would use John's vans. And then I think eventually John got tired of being the van guy. And then Oscar started being the van guy, and it seemed like Oscar always had a new van that he was buying from some busboy for like $50.
Yeah.
We went through like several of those. And then finally we got to me. I bought the last couple of vans. The one van that was cursed, and we
the O'Connell line.
Yeah. That one we never even got out of the state of Illinois with. And then finally this Grand Caravan, which ultimately was how it all ended.
And then the van we borrowed.
The loaner van.
Yeah, we had that was a Dodge Ram van that we borrowed from Eric. What's his name?
Tom Robb.
Tom Robb was the bouncer at the Note.
Oh yeah. I remember Tom.
Yeah,
Tom.
And he was dumb enough to lend us his van.
Why would he do that?
Nice.
And we fucking ground the shit out of his
my God. So
transmission.
I don't get it. He had met bands, you know?
Yeah, but the thing is, like, on our way with Lindsay's vans to Minneapolis, it broke down, and that was sad enough. But then we had to replace the radiator in California because we're trying to go up the Grapevine on our way down from San Francisco, and we broke down halfway up the Grapevine, which is like this massive. We had a flat tire. There's no way to change a tire on the Grapevine, and this is before cell phones. So we're about a mile up this mountain, and Lindsay decided he would walk down to the service area a mile at the bottom of the mountain to call for AAA to have the guy come up. And the guy fixed the tire. We're like, hey, can you tow us over the top? Just, because that would be great. And then we coasted down the rest of the way, all the way into LA because
we coasted into LA.
Because we were overheating the entire time. There was just no way to do it. Yeah. By the time we got back to Illinois, we had to sort of like hope we didn't have to stop because first gear had stopped working in the
it was only second gear.
Only second gear. So when we came to a tow thing, it would literally like we'd get to it and we'd heave the money in, hoping we were slow enough that we could get the money into the basket and then we would just keep going and hope we didn't get arrested. Oh, and we literally it was like out of a movie. We showed up to the Note to drop off the van, and we're like thanks for the van, Tom, and took off.
and then it fell apart.
And with Booty, when we went with the Sportsman, we went up the Grapevine. When we got to the top, his car, the Sportsman, used to blow the header gaskets.
Oh yeah.
We rode into LA with open headers, setting off all the fucking car alarms.
They're so touchy in LA.
No, they're so yeah, not used to that kind of thing. This is really fun for me. There's so many things that like I our band played Casper, Wyoming, and like nobody should have ever played there. So both bands having played there, they're marketing themselves well, you know.
So,
Like,
you guys ever played in Norman, Oklahoma? Those were good gigs.
Those are good. Yeah, those
Yeah,
were
the
good
deli,
gigs.
right? The deli.
Yeah. We could spend the whole night talking about the bands. Yeah.
Backing into gas pumps, getting followed through gas stations.
Yeah.
All types of weird shit.
I would like, it should be noted that Lindsay was not allowed to drive.
Oh yeah, no, that's true.
Well played, sir.
That's a through line. Yeah.
No, unless everybody else was drunk, and then Lindsay
Yes, that was the only time he's allowed to drive. But the problem was, we may have been drunk, but he would be reading a magazine while driving. So that was always a really terrible, terrible thing.
I can always drive better drunk than Lindsay could sober.
That's right.
Is this a like break the dish so that you don't have to do the dishes anymore kind of scenario, Lindsay? Or
no, Travis. Simply, I am ahead of my own time. What can I say?
Well played, sir. Well played.
The joke, of course, was they were his vans and he wasn't allowed to drive the van.
I know.
Even better.
It's kind of messed up, actually. But anyway.
All right, we discussed the worst gig, and that's a damn fine worst gig story. I mean, there's somebody
we
died.
didn't talk about. I think the witches gig should be talked about.
The witches gig. You mean the one in
Boone?
Rhine? Oh, in Boone.
That was in Boone.
Boone.
I don't remember this story.
Halloween. We played the witches convention.
Like the Wicca convention.
Yeah.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And they wanted us to play top 40, and the only song these guys knew how to play was "Feel Like Making Love," so they just played that over and over.
Oh, hold on. you get Wiccans, like literally the most.
Yeah, it was a
group
Wiccan
of
convention.
Antisocial behaviorists by their actual creed, and what they want is top 40 hits.
That's correct.
Oh yeah, all we do was Feel Like Making Love, and we didn't really do a very good version of that at all.
No,
well, but I am sure that they felt like making love, so that was a good call.
One of the best shows ever was the weirdest show, which was the one at Humboldt State when we played at that weird.
College of the Redwoods.
Yeah. Where's the marijuana?
I forgot about that. Yeah.
It was Humboldt State, and there was they had an outdoor festival, and there were a bunch of hippies there hanging out, and then like we set up, and we're like, oh, this will be cool. Like a bunch of hippies will be there, and everybody was gone. And we're like, what the fuck happened? And we were like, well, I guess we got to start playing. So we started playing, and about 5-10 minutes into the show, like everybody started coming in from the woods, like.
There is this other show, which is also one of my all-time favorites, which is the Rhine show. Here's what happened with that. We had played New York City, and again, we were looking for another show, like a Friday night in New York somewhere. And so I had heard about this place called the Hotel Rhinecliff. It was in Rhinecliff, which is about an hour north of New York City. And so we booked a gig there. I had heard it was a great place. So we get up there, and Rhinecliff is literally this teeny tiny town. It's like the size of my bathroom, right? And we get there, and we pull up to this place, and it's like a house, basically. And so we walk inside the house, and there is a bar directly in front of us. And we said, hey, we're the band to play in here tonight. And he says, oh, great, bring your stuff into that room over there. So we bring our stuff into this little tiny ancillary room that is off of the bar it's just like an empty room. There's nothing in it at all, with black walls. There's a screen door that goes out to the woods that are behind the house, and a couple of windows, but that's it. And so I have the guys, we bring our stuff in, we set it all down, and I'm like, and now people are like, guys in the band are like, where do we play? And I was like, yeah, let me go ask. So I go up to the bartender, and I said, hey, so yeah, we're playing. And I was like, awesome, we're looking forward to it. And I said, yeah, so where did the band set up? Like, where do they play? And he's like, in there. And I was like, you mean in there where we just put our stuff? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, in there? And he's like, and so he walks with me into the room, and we both stand in the room, and he goes, you're playing in here. You're playing in here. And so we're like, but how will we play in here? Like, this is this small little room.
No PA.
Nope. Well, there was a PA. It was the PA was just that. It was 2 mics and 2 speakers.
Yeah, that was it.
Yeah, that's it. Nothing else. And so, we'd had a long week leading up to this gig, I would say. And so when I learned of this information, I was like, I got to go tell the band this. So I walk outside, everybody's out there, you know, we've loaded all our stuff, and they're hanging around, and I'm like, okay, so that little room that we put our stuff in that we thought was like the storage room, that's actually the room where we'll be playing this show. And immediately everybody's like, what? No, we're not.
No, it was Chris Udy who
That
had
was
the
me.
reaction.
No, it was me. Yeah, Lindsay's being kind again. It was me. I was like, fuck this.
Yeah,
I'm
those
not
are the words.
playing here.
Fuck this, we're not playing here. Right.
Yeah.
So we had about 5 minutes of that. And then I said, look, okay, I got an idea. Why don't we just go and we'll get dinner, and then we can, you know, we'll have dinner and we can decide after dinner what we're going to do.
The lucky part of this is that Rhine is also close enough to CIA, the Culinary Institute, that the people who graduate from there open these restaurants in these little towns like Rhine. And right across the street was this restaurant run by a guy from CIA where we decided to have dinner, mostly because it was the only place to have dinner. But they had sake martinis, right?
Sake margaritas.
Sake margaritas. Holy shit, did we get fucked up.
Yeah, buddy.
So we have dinner, and everybody is completely loose by the time we're done with this. And so at the end of the night, I'm like, at the end of the dinner, I said, so what do we think? We're going to play this thing? And by that point, Chris Udy was like, yeah, whatever. It'll be fine. It'll be fine. So we get back over there, we set up, and now here we are once again, all 5 of us in a room with no one else. And the guy's like, you guys can start playing anytime. So we start playing, and we probably play 2 or 3 songs, nobody in the room, and we're kind of feeling a little depressed, but you know, it doesn't matter.
Is there even a soul out there besides Keith?
And so then the strangest thing starts to happen, which is that people start coming in the screen door that is directly in front of us from the woods. Like, it's like slowly people start coming in from the woods and dancing along with us while we're playing. And so we're like, hey, there's people. This is amazing. And so we keep playing, and more people slowly, song after song, just come in out of the woods to the point where this little tiny room is now completely packed with people who are going insane and jumping up and down and doing everything. And there's this one guy, and he's got like his entire head shaved except for like this Hare Krishna sort of thing on top. And he's going crazier than all of them. And he's like jumping on top of people. And it like, this show's completely off the hook insane, right? And it turns out to be this amazing thing. And the one thing is, we still hadn't figured out where we were going to spend the night. So I was like, hey, does anybody have a place where we could sleep tonight? And this guy is like, you could stay at my house. And I was like, oh, okay, great, cool. Yeah, I'm not going to argue. So later that guy takes us to his house, and it turns out that was Derek Sivers, who was the founder of CD Baby. Like, he had just founded CD Baby like 9 months earlier.
Yeah.
We had sent him our CD for him to sell. And so he was
came to see the show.
He came to see the show, and we wound up spending the night at his place.
Now, there's another show that I remember because Lindsay opened up somebody's head, and that was Arlene's Grocery.
Arlene's Grocery in New York.
On purpose?
It was an accident.
No.
Okay.
So
I can't imagine that. You know?
Lindsay's a pacifist. That would be impossible.
I really wasn't. So, I mean, here's the thing. We showed up at Arlene's, and we were sound checking at 5 o'clock. We were going to go on at 9:30. And we get there, and at 5 o'clock, there's a guy sitting at the bar, this bald guy, and he is completely wasted. And he comes up to me as we're starting this. And I was like, oh, yeah, we're going to rock it.
That's the appropriate answer.
Oh, yeah.
And the guy was like, no, you don't understand. Are you going to rock me tonight? And I was like, yes, sir. We will rock you this evening. Yes, we plan on doing that. Yes. And so cut to 4 hours later, we're playing It's a Nubile Thing, and we're going completely nuts. And this guy is at the front of the audience. And we had a full house full of people going, just crazy. And this guy is at the very front of the stage, just like going, ah! And I got up on the drum riser and jumped, way up in the air to end the song. I got my bass in my hand. I bring it down just at the moment that this guy leans his head in, and I come down full force with the neck of my bass on this guy's head, drop him like a ton of bricks. We hit the thing, guy goes completely to the floor, and like the entire audience saw it. So like there was silence for 2 seconds, right? Like, oh my God, he's just killed this guy. And then this guy gets up with a face full of blood and goes, "Rah!" He's like, play me another one, rock me again. And I'm like, no, you have been rocked.
You've been rocked enough, sir.
You've been rocked. You need to stop. Every single person after that show came up and was like, you guys were amazing. Also, you nearly fucking killed that guy.
That was another place we always had good gigs, was the Lion's Den.
Which Lion's Den?
In New York.
In New York.
Oh, in New York. Oh, the Lion's Den in New York.
We did. We generally had very good shows in New York altogether.
And we did brownies.
Yeah, that was nice.
Under Acme?
Was there an out-of-town location? I mean, Lion's Den sounds like one, but was there like another city other than Chicago that treated you especially well, do you feel like?
There was this bar. Okay, so there was this bar in Asbury Park, New Jersey called the Brighton Bar in Long Branch. And
we played, but wait, we did 3 shows in 24 hours. We played the Philadelphia Music Conference, and we played that place, and then we played at CBGB's.
Yeah, we did a lot.
That was the second gig.
Yeah, we did a lot of crazy things. But that guy Jack who ran that bar was the nicest guy, and had no reason to take pity on us. But he always gave us good shows. Usually, on
we played there every time we went east. We played there. That was always a good place. I mean, it had a built-in, crowd who would just come, who was just there to see music. Those are always the best gigs in a strange way. It's like these. As much of a diva as I would fucking be.
My sweet love.
The hair. Just been said.
Sorry.
It always seemed to be me at the middle of those stories. It's always the middle of the nowhere where there's not necessarily a band that always comes out. It's the only thing to do in town. Those folks are always super supportive and great.
Right.
It's where you least expect it is where people are crazy, the most crazy about music.
Do you guys remember State College?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was fun.
Drunk ass girl.
Wow.
Which one?
Well, there was one that was talking like,
I mean, I met that girl.
I don't remember that.
I know that girl. Yeah.
I have pictures of somebody cutting my hair on stage in State College right before we played.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah.
Who cut your hair, man? Some weirdo?
Apparently,
it was like a frat dude with
apparently
with
he
clippers.
cut it so well it never grew back. Thank you. I'll
That's
be here all
serious
week.
cutting. That's good.
Now this is not a well-known fact, but for about 3 years, Oscar Ibarra was actually my barber. I would go over to his house and he would cut my hair.
Nice.
I would say once a month. He would cut me. That happened for about 3 years until I finally got enough confidence to do it myself.
That's right.
Well done, sir. Nicely played.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a
right.
barber and mechanic.
That's right.
And martini shaker. We used to take our own martini kit.
Every so often, Travis, we would have these nights. They were specific nights that were martini nights. That was a night on a tour where we would all get wasted on martinis. It didn't happen every night. It was just specific nights.
Did you save them for especially hard times, or was it sort of a random whatever?
I felt like it was random.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you're right.
We had a little suitcase. Remember the little suitcase?
Yeah.
Little vermouth and a vodka bottle.
Open up.
This is a good plan. I mean, I think you need planned good times to get you through a tour.
That is correct.
You need moments that whatever your plans were before, fuck it, we're going to Taco Bell, whatever. I think martinis is better, but whatever it's going to be, like everybody's off the hook tonight. We're going to enjoy the shit out of it.
Speaking of shit and Taco Bell, all we ever talked about on the road was poop.
Yeah, we talked a lot about poop.
One of our band members has an actual nickname based on poop.
Johnny
Apple Poo.
Oh yeah.
We would be driving and
across
we'd be
the
driving
land.
and Booty would be like, I gotta go to the bathroom. And we'd pull over, he'd run out. In the time it would take me to put the car into park, he would run in and run back.
I can't think of anything finer in life than being able to poop on demand and quickly. This is especially as life grows longer, what an excellent skill you happen to have, sir. This is
yes.
I am impressed.
Becca's very proud.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the Academy.
All right, other good travel skills.
So everybody in the band had a thing that they were good at. Like Oscar was good at being the mechanic if we needed it. Oscar was
He wasn't a mechanic. This is what Oscar would do. Oscar would go out to the car, open up the hood, look at it with a really nasty face, look up and say, "Try it now," and it would work. And then he would close it and he'd get back in the car and we would go. He didn't do anything but scare the shit out of the engine. That's all he did.
Yeah.
That works.
I replaced gaskets.
Yeah.
I'm a sportsman.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, he knew it.
But more often than not, he would look at it, say,
And
"Try
scare
it now," and it would work. I don't think I had any skills. Did I have any specific skill on the road?
If complaining about things is a skill.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. That's not really a skill.
You're the conventional.
I mean, that's what I was thinking, and that's not really a skill.
I was usually in charge of the map. That was the thing I would do.
That's because you weren't allowed to drive.
I was in charge of stealing things.
Yeah, well, we tried to make you not in charge of that.
I've got to mention one of my favorite moments on tour, where I've never laughed so fucking hard, is when we went to your parents' house.
Oh my God!
That and Oscar hovering his ass over Jamie Pacino's mom's white sofa. Do you remember that?
I just thought of that like 4 or 5 days ago, actually.
All right.
So Lindsay Jones.
We're gonna need the story.
So when Lindsay Jones' wife now, girlfriend, or I don't remember if they were.
We were engaged. Yeah.
And her mom is I don't think her mom's gonna watch it. She was a little uptight, and she had this like white sofa.
Lindsay's not laughing.
You guys can come over, and it's brand new, and it's white. I mean, it's white, not like bone.
White.
It is like ass white, and like Oscar has literally like been eating Cheetos or something, right? And he's got his naked ass, and I just remember you hovering your naked ass over the white sofa to Lindsay Jones's face, and you got like Cheetos on your hand. I don't know, like barbecue sauce coming down.
What happened was we were playing in Baltimore, where my wife's mother lives. You know, she agreed to let us all stay with her. So I'm going to stay with my wife in the bedroom, and these 4 guys are all going to sleep in the sort of TV room, right? That was their plan. And I said to them, now listen, the only thing is she's really kind of frantic about the white couch. So just don't even look at the couch. Don't go near the couch. Don't get on the couch. So at the end of the night, I said, okay, good night. See you in the morning. I'll get up in the morning, and they immediately hand me like this Polaroid of Oscar.
That's right.
Bare-assed with 2 hands completely filled with Cheeto dust, sort of
hovering over my mother-in-law's couch.
Good.
So good.
Oh man, I don't think I've laughed. I have not. That's about the hardest I remember laughing.
Somehow the fact that it's a Polaroid makes it that much better. It's like you had to, because you needed proof to show them the next time.
Yeah, you didn't have yet. Not everybody had a phone,
Right. Yeah, it's a different era. You need that
in their pocket.
No, this was before phones. We didn't.
Way before phones.
The last question I always ask in any interview I do is, what did I not ask that I should have asked?
I think I've said all that that there is to say about myself.
That's a
I
good
can talk about the rest of these guys.
I mean, we've managed to stay friends for 30 years and be in a band, and that's like that's a really amazing achievement.
Yeah.
Yes, it is.
I would second that. I mean, that's the one thing that when the times that we spent together in a cramped, stupid, fucking one of many vans, they're golden to me. I don't remember us ever really I mean, I'm the one that's the hardest to get along with, and the fact that these guys put up with me, you know, for a lot of years, is pretty remarkable. I'm grateful for the time that we got to spend together. It's not, you know, it's not normal in rock and roll at any level. So
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, plus our families were always a part of it too. Like, you know, everybody and everybody's family is close with everybody and everybody's family. I mean, to the point where, like, my brother actually paid for Pork Chop Extraordinaire.
Yeah.
And everybody's family put us up at different times or somehow got involved. And all the wives, I mean, Oscar and me excluded, the wives always, like, you know, allowed the guys to go on the road for a long period of time. Well, Travis, thank you very much for doing this.
It's
Thanks, Travis.
absolutely my pleasure, guys. Actually, I never asked this one. How did you guys decide the band name was the Nubile Thangs? I don't have the band name.
Oh. It was Lindsay's stupid idea.
It's my fault.
There are no winners in band naming, I've learned. But,
there are no winners. Originally we were the Young Nubile Thangs, and then we thought it sounded way too much like the Fine Young Cannibals at the time. And besides, Young Nubile's kind of redundant.
There was also the Young Fresh Fellows around that time, and so we didn't want to.
Young Fresh Fellows. God.
So it coincided with like Mark Johnson, who we've talked about over and over through this thing. He was actually a vocalist at one point for the Young Nubile Thangs, and so when he left, we sort of thought, okay, this will be a good way for us to start over. And what had happened was, you know, growing up in the South, I would hear people say, when they see a good-looking woman pass by, like, oh, there goes a nubile thang. There goes a young nubile thang, which means, you know, a good-looking woman. And I just assumed that everyone knew that because I had heard it. But it turns out no one knows what it means. And it was the worst name in the history of show business. And it's all my fault.
Which is evidenced by the fact that every marquee all over the country misspelled the name of the band.
Nubile Thangs, New Bike Things.
New Bike Things was, yeah.
New Bike Things.
One
New
show
Wild
thought
Fangs. I like that one.
One show thought we were the New Bomb Turks, who is a completely different,
New Bomb Turks. That's right.
It's a thing. It's a thing. You know, it's good. Yeah.
They were
People
bigger.
were really upset about that. But anyway, here we are. We're still here.
I think it's also important to make note of the fact that Travis was in a band called Bumpus. Who, when we played with them first, we were kind of big in Chicago and they were unheard of, and very quickly it went like this. And the Bumpus became very big, and now Travis is one of my favorite bands in the world called Terrible Spaceship. Which is just a brilliant band, which everyone should go see.
Agreed.
When the world isn't ending. Thank you guys for doing this interview.
Thank you.
I'd love to do it again anytime.
Thank you, Travis. 25, 30 years from now.
We look forward to it.
I'm in.
Thank you, Travis.
Count me in.
All right. Love you guys.
See ya.
Love you all. Take care.
Bye.
Take care, you guys. Great to see you.
Bye.
Bueno. We are one thing wonders. Sí, claro.
Or have a long conversation with the manager of a bar that's a dwarf.
Yeah.
No, he was interviewing, wasn't he?
Well,
that was at
okay.
The Lions Den.
This guy was a band manager. Yeah, he was like a dwarf, and he was trying to talk to me. He was trying to like get a career going being a band manager, and he wanted to manage us.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, and the thing was, he was like, he was 3.5 feet tall, and I'm 6 feet, and so he's trying to talk to me in the middle of this really loud club. So I sort of kept bending down. And every time I bent down, I think he didn't like the fact that I was bending down. I was just trying to hear him. So I was bending down, and then he would talk, and he never yelled, and then we're not talking louder. And so eventually then I'm just sort of crouching, right? Like I'm like, just sort of like, I'm like this, you know, and I like crouching on the floor trying to talk to him. And then so he crouches down because he doesn't want to look like.
Like he's down on one knee. The guy is down on one knee next to him.
We were literally.
I forgot about that.
Like having a limbo contest trying to talk to each other.
That's like Curb Your Enthusiasm. Oh, I forgot about that.
Didn't he say at one point, no, you don't have to leave.
No, you don't have to do that, man. It's cool.
Yeah, you don't have to do that. It's all right. I remember watching you going,
I don't know. For me, he goes, you get on one knee, and then he does too.
Oh yeah,
like,
that was what was so amazing.
Like
it kept happening.
Oh, that's some good stuff.